Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Mooncolony live stream. It's nice to see everyone again. Hello to those of you in chat. Today, I have got Arthur back with us, one of our lovely art directors. Hello, Arthur. How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, and I recognize already Anthony from in the chat. It's nice to see you there.
Yeah,
Anyway, thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, it's nice to see It's nice to see regular names in the chat. It's nice. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit special because it's our last stream of the year, our last stream of 2023. It's been an amazing year. We started taking Twitch sort of seriously, and I think it's February, and time has just flown by since then. Thinking that we've done twice a week is insanity to me, but we've done it, and we plan to carry on next year. But in celebration of Christmas being 4 days away, we're going to be taking Nix, our lovely little mascot created by Leone, who I'm sure you all know, and we're going to be turning him a little bit festive. So I thought we'd ask Arthur to do that for us. But take it away. Tell us about your thought process and
Sure.
everything.
Well, it's very complicated, as you'll see. It's taking Nix, so that this is Alexandra's excellent work, of course, great design work, and giving him a bit of just a basically a Christmas sweater, some just whatever Christmassy thing I could think of. So to do that, I just sort of made I just added a semi-transparent layer on top of the frontal view of his design. Here's a symmetry here. I'll just make it hidden. And just new layer, a nice soft round brush. By the way, hi Yuri. Yuri is an artist I know from way back. Nice to have you here as well.
Yeah,
it's a small world
around. It is. It really is. Yeah. It's crazy. I think when we had Antoine on here as well, we had so many people be like, oh my god, Antoine, I didn't know that you were here at Mooncolony. And it's like, yeah, it's just such a small world. Everyone knows each other.
Yeah, for sure. And the Mooncolony Discord server has been like this sort of watering hole for like a lot of the fauna. For sure, it sort of centralized the attention. It's really cool. So all right, so basically just like sort of drawing over what could be a Christmas jumper, making things a bit more floppy, like bit thicker, and just a big old scarf on top of everything. And I was wondering what to do, because that's obviously not enough. And I was thinking maybe I don't know if you're too young to know moon boots, like this sort of.
I think I know moon boots.
Right, they're like those very thick, like they're supposed to look like astronaut boots, but they're obviously they're made for after skiing, sort of putting your feet into something warm and walking around. So there's just these big fluffy things, and they have kind of a very particular shape. Like the bottom part, like for the foot, is like pretty squarish. It's like there's this sort of form here. Same for the heel, and the rest is just sort of like fluffy, like swishy material, with big laces in the front and on the side. So I thought it was like kind of funny pun, like for Mooncolony's mascot to wear moon boots on Christmas.
Yeah, it's clever. It's witty.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because Nix is obviously he's quite a thick set character, apart from his legs, obviously. So I'm guessing you can kind of follow the shapes that are already established and alter them a little bit. But
For sure. And like one thing I think is important to tell to like maybe the younger, at least younger in career, like younger artists, is like don't be afraid of like using symmetry. I know it doesn't look like super professional. You might not want to like show like your client a symmetrical design, because when you scroll on ArtStation, you see these gorgeous like 3/4 views and back 3/4 views of characters. You think, okay, that's the standard. It's a great standard to have, of course, but it's also okay to just do something like this, you know, just as at least as a first sort of exploration. You can put a few of these side by side and make some variations. And as long as you break off the symmetry somehow a little bit, you know, for example, the scarf, you can we can turn up the symmetry for a sec. And do something like this. You know, it's all right. But yeah, and another thing to understand is like, let's look at the strength of this design here, is that like basically the shape language is this, right? You have these long shooting like shapes for the legs, right? This sort of thin narrow like arrows basically that point towards the chest. So this, we should sort of keep that, right? I don't want to have like big thick skiing pants or winter pants, you know, because that would sort of break that nice variation, you know, that sort of that sort of rhythm there. So I'll keep his legs just the way they are. I'm just daring to make this sort of Christmas jumper a little thicker, woolly, and for the scarf as well, and the boots also. I'm trying to not make the boots go too high, because you remember in our last stream, like I was talking about like keeping things, trying to avoid like this sort of like similar, you know, height for everything. We're running into this now, so I should be careful. The original design actually is much more careful about that.
Yeah, it's something that since you mentioned it in our last stream, I've kind of been looking out for when I've been looking at other people's work. Just thinking, oh, the spacing between, like, you know, the spacing between articles of clothing and parts of the body is just something that I'm a lot more aware of.
Oh, nice. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's
so all right. So Christmas jumper, scarf, moon boots. I was thinking like my son, like I'm much more sensitive to like cute stuff now that I have a kid, like especially when in terms of like buying stuff like hats and whatnot. And something I noticed, and it brought me back like, of course, 30 years in the past. It's like these sort of mittens, these wool mittens with like the thing for the fingers like can flap back.
Yeah, I remember having them when I was a kid.
Yeah, right. And I think it's super like whimsical and funny and not serious. And it really contrasts well with his like he's a playful character, but he's got this cool boyish like, oh, I'm a skull, you know, like I'm cool, you know, I've got sharp ears, I'm a skull, etc. I think it's a nice juxtaposition to sort of have him like have cute like kid mittens like that.
Yeah, it's
so
nice. Lisa says, "Oh my, 7 streams in a row." Haha. Hi, bonjour.
Bonjour. Hi.
Congratulations! Yeah. Thank you for watching seven of our first streams in a row. I hope you carry on into next year. But thank you so much for watching. It goes to everybody who's watched this year. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I was thinking we could have like this sort of you know, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right?
Yeah.
So famous Christmas song. And I thought it would be cool for him to have like antlers like this. And so you see, like in symmetry, it's pretty easy to just try out ideas without like, and right away seeing them like work out or not. So I was thinking of this with like a bit of mistletoe at the root and stuff, like some little leaves and stuff. And then I thought like a hat, so almost like a Peruvian hat, you know, with the like the flaps for the ears.
The flaps. Yeah.
Right. with little pompons at the ends, and a big like red pompon on top to be the Rudolph, you know, like a callback to the antlers. So that's pretty much like what, you know, an hour or so of designing and, you know, trying things around gave me. So this is the sort of final. I'll try to. Okay. So this is what it was like at the end, basically. Big buttons for the eyes, like showing the ears. So it's like hopefully conveys, you know, a better like relation with the antlers and the fact that it's supposed to be that character, that reindeer character. And then for good measure, I tried to like see if it works in 3/4 view, because that's as useful as symmetry is. It's also important to try to apply that to like a 3/4 view. And thankfully, Alexandra had like one handy just near his design, so I just you know, like what you can do if you're not too sure of the elevation of details, you can just like, you know, bring like visual guides like that. I didn't do it, maybe I should have, but you know, so you can just you put a few of these and then you can see. And while looking at like, you know, so you sort of alternate between that symmetrical design, and you just try to apply that design element, let's say the scarf here, over here, just gauging by the elevation and using these sort of bars, these blue bars in Photoshop that you can just drag from the ruler here.
Yeah,
so
I mean, seems like you did a pretty good job even without them.
Thanks. Thanks. All right, so with that I was like, okay, let's just put this guy into a more illustrated, you know, pose. So let's jump in, and so I would have this like this. I'm basically like recreating, or like, you know, my steps, tracing back my steps, like how I did it. Sorry, actually this should be on the left.
On the left, yeah.
Yeah, I somehow prefer like having the design on the left, and I don't know if it's a sort of brain chemistry, like some wiring.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you left or right-handed?
I'm left-handed.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to like, so you're almost leaning over your designs anyway. That's interesting.
Yeah. One thing I like to do is always like set up a perspective grid beforehand, or like after I'm done with the sketch. So it's just to help me, like as I'm sketching things, it's to help me understand the change in elevation. So here's our horizon, and if I'm going to draw the feet, the way they connect to the ground, I know it's going to be like something like this, you know. It's not going to be something like this. It's not going to be super flat. And then, you know, here's going to be the horizon. So whatever horizontal design that's going to be there, it's going to be pretty like straight like this. Let's say, imagine it's the boots here.
Yeah,
be something like this. Although I try to avoid the horizon because it's weird. It's like uncanny to have just, you know, flat details. But I mean, sometimes you have so many details that some of them are just going to end up being on the horizon. But then, yeah, so seeing how these like lines cross each other, it sort of gives you an idea of how like the elevation sort of changes as you look up, you know. So if you were to draw like something like, for example, the scarf at that height, it wouldn't be like this. It would be maybe, you know, something like more flat, you know, because you're sort of looking up, and having a perspective grid sort of helps you knowing exactly how much you're looking up, you know. So that's just the reasoning behind having a perspective grid. So yeah, like usually I try to have the perspective grid sort of like turn so that there's mostly like almost horizontal lines like this.
Yeah.
For like a 3/4 view, just, you know, like this sort of classic sort of dynamic but mostly frontal view of a character. So a vanishing point that goes like this, like giving almost like horizontal lines like this, and just that's going to be where, like, you know, the face is going to be the main shapes of everything, you know, like this sort of I forget which letter it is, but just the length axis of the character is going to be coming from here, and so we're going to be mostly seeing the face like almost flat, but not quite because it's boring. And then the other vanishing point is just there to sort of whatever, just the opposite, but not as flat, just slightly more like the vanishing point is slightly closer to the camera. Anyway, I give you a little preview. Sorry,
a little sneak peek. Spoilers.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have more than 1.5 hours. So I'll just sketch and feel free to ask questions and whatnot, and I'll just in the chat. So one thing I did, because I was very lazy and a bit short on time, I just took this face, even this, from the design, and because it sort of matched my perspective, I just copied and pasted it. Oops, I copied and pasted the wrong layer. It should be this. Okay. Tilted. You see, I sort of tilted it to sort of match the perspective grid. This line here. You don't have to, you know. It's like the character could be tilting their head like one way or another. It's just a starting point. The perspective grid is not really to like fix a character in space. It's mostly to understand the change in elevation, and so to sort of organize things like with a choice, like making a conscious choice every time, because you might want the character to be leaning forward like this, but what you want to know is exactly how forward it is, like how that forward stance should look like in comparison with the rest of the space, you know. That's really all it's for. Okay, so actually I forgot like what my sketch looks like, so I'll just like sketch another thing. I don't know if it's gonna be close to that or not, but yeah, anyway, zoom out and
hello Fuyuan Art, nice to see you. Hello Ultrarook, nice to see you too. I love the octopus emoji. I've always loved that on Twitch. It's so cute.
For sure.
But I hope you guys are doing okay. Welcome to the stream.
Yeah, welcome.
So before we got started, Arthur was telling me that, you know, where he currently lives, it doesn't really celebrate Christmas that often. But I was going to say, are you doing anything special, even though maybe the rest of the country doesn't? You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. There's there's a big expat community. A lot of foreigners live in Japan, so you know there's always, you know, you're never too far from a nice drink, a nice Christmas eggnog or whatever, you know, a nice and yeah. So I'll, you know, we do that, and at home it's just my wife, me, and our kids. So we're gonna do something like just a nice little. We'll cook something nice and put some music and and then the next day just visit some friends and stuff like that. It's a good thing we're on vacation, like, because I work now for Mooncolony. Like, I'm actually following like British, you know, holidays, British vacations.
Yeah.
So I'll have like plenty of time off to see like my friends and communicate with like family and stuff without worrying of going to work. Which is not the case for a lot of expats. Like it's a sneaky Christmas. We usually try to, you know, you're sort of trying to maneuver around your office hours.
Yeah.
In Japan.
Yeah, I've heard office hours there can be pretty tough. So.
Yeah. I've always been very lazy. I've always been like I've done my best to avoid working for Japanese companies, like as an in-house artist, because I know it's a grueling, you know, existence. So far, I've managed, but
yeah. Let's hope to keep it that way.
Yeah. All right. So one thing I want to mention, like, so this character is sort of leaning forward here. It's all nice. You see, one thing that can easily happen when you pose a character that you've designed carefully, like, standing up, when you make them lean forward, some proportions can become compressed with perspective, foreshortening, all that stuff. So you have to cheat a little bit. And for example, this end of the scarf here, this sort of square here, its length is a little too similar to what's going on here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just cheat, sort of get away from the what's going on in the original design, and maybe lengthen it and add some little things. Like, you have to make a choice. Anytime you see like two forms having the same shape or the same size, you should definitely address it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe shorter. Well, let's see. I'll leave it for now, like this, and we'll see how everything gels, because it's also a matter of putting it. Sorry, in relation with other body shapes, the legs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot. I know he's holding a present, and then his other arm is the other side, like this. Let's see. Yeah. Let's imagine he's holding a present like this. Then I forgot to see if it's this arm or that arm.
I think it's the left arm. So his right arm.
Oh.
I think.
Okay.
If I'm remembering the sketch properly.
No worries. After a while, I'll just switch. I'll just move on from. Like, I'll just sort of show you the thing and show you the next step from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be way too stressful to like promise like a full, like a full illustration like from scratch. So I'm just like, I have all my steps ready, and I'm just sort of tracing back my workflow.
That's a nice way to do it. I mean, sometimes sometimes we'll get people on and they'll just wing it, just be like, I don't have a plan. So okay, cool. Well, you're the one drawing here, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's so funny. All right, so let's make his little chest here. I really like the round brush, the soft round brush, because it's super forgiving. You can sort of get away with a lot. You can sort of see through the fuzziness, see through the blur, and say, oh, maybe I'll just like erase a bit of this, and you sort of see your final shape within that big blurry mess.
Yeah.
Really like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of the questions you get is, what kind of brushes do you use? And a lot of the artists that we get on the stream are just like soft round brush. It's like the default Photoshop soft round brush is good enough for 99% of what you'll be doing.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. At least for the sketching, I don't see, that's all right. Then there's like for some projects, like some cinematic we're doing right now, like it's kind of gritty. It's supposed to be gritty and cool looking, so we're not even sketching with round like soft brushes. We're right away using like these gritty, textured, sort of heavy-handed brushes.
Oh, interesting.
And sort of trying to sculpt form, but that takes a lot of experience. It's definitely an advanced sort of a workflow.
Yeah,
for sure.
Meanwhile, Leone has the legendary Jaden brush. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, Arthur, but Leone has a brush that is just my face.
Oh, I have one of those. Like actually, my round brush is like some guy I knew from way back, like here.
It's just
it's his face, but like since then, like I just like sort of blurred it, so that's just that's his hair. It's just from a crappy picture,
Yeah.
But anyway, just his hair, and like he used to have like glasses and stuff, and that's
See, Leonie didn't even do that. Leonie literally just took my face and turned it into a brush, no editing at all. And he uses it in like every stream. He's like, it's
Ah,
really good for doing. It's really good for doing fur. It's like, yeah, thanks, man.
yeah, nice. It's just a peculiar legacy, but I guess
Yeah,
it's nice to see your face living on forever in
yeah,
art that's gonna be online.
yeah. I mean, when he did his original draw this in your style that had his like
Mm.
original version of Nyx that was like more it was less sort of cute than this one. The eyes in his eyes were glowing, but there was just like if you zoomed in on it, you would see that he had basically just stamped my face. I think it was my face in one and maybe Christina's face in the other one. so so there was just like a little Jaden in his illustration and a little Christina. That was yeah. These brushes
That
were
was so
made
funny.
within like my first month of working here as well. Like
Mm.
it was some kind of hazing that I had to go through.
Yeah, I guess it is.
But we keep saying we
All
need
right.
Mooncolony brush
Yeah.
set. Just everybody's faces.
Yeah. Yeah. I see my face like as a nice round like highlight brush, just like a
Yeah,
sort of sharper, I don't
yeah.
know. Or just my mustache as like a fur brush. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that would be perfect. We need to get on it. The more people I can get on board with this, the higher chance we have of it succeeding.
Yeah. Oh, that's really funny. All right. So as I'm sort of like working through, as you can see, it's looking less and less like a big blur, like a blurry, mess, and more like something organized. One thing I was sort of paying attention as I was like sketching from this design is because when you draw something fluffy and big and round, it can easily look too like the Michelin, like
Yeah, the Michelin Man.
this Michelin Man, like all around and just like layers of even sized like blubber, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even when things are fluffy and like that, it's kind of cool to try to imagine what could be compressed, what could be pinched, and in this case, the like the scarf like this, sort of maybe accommodating for like, maybe a shape like like the helmet could be like this, so like it could explain the scarf going like this, and the coat or the Christmas sweater going like this, so motivating this, justifying this shape like that. So that's why I'm sort of trying to justify however I can like an alternation of convex and concave shapes. And so the rhythm is like this, right? Like I have my long convex shape like this, a smaller convex shape here, but like straighter, and then an alternation into a concave shape like this, but shorter. So you see it's like middle, small, big. Yeah, that's sort of important, in general. It's a reassuring thing. It's like, okay, this is sort of solved. Let's try to make it work elsewhere,
Yeah.
Let's try to avoid tangents as well. So I'm making sure I cross way past this line. You don't want to stop here.
Yeah.
And checking the time, of course. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You've got like an hour and a half, so
Easy peasy.
Yeah. I was going to say that does that also feed back into when you mentioned earlier, like you have your horizon line and you don't really want anything touching that horizon line. That's also to do with tangents and stuff, right? You don't want.
Yeah. Well, if like if your horizon line is gonna actually appear on the painting, of course you don't want anything just touching this. That point was more to do with like the making things too straight. Like for example, if the top of your boot is there, it's weird to have like a perfectly aligned top of the boot with the horizon. It's weird, It's like we should sort of avoid. I try to avoid straight lines anyway, especially for stylized work.
Yeah.
Even like when I do like a sword or like a spear, I try to do something like this. I'll even like straighten it up, and then like sorry, wrong. And do something like this for the shaft of the spear.
Yeah.
Maybe, of course, this is a bit too.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be like, so even if it's just a subtle curve, it's enough to make a
Exactly.
difference. Yeah.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah. For sure.
I
Dude,
just
it's looking different today. Yep. A few
yeah.
years in the face.
Yeah. No, this is
Yeah.
not Leone today. Come on. That's Ignacio. He's a regular in Discord. Hello, Ignacio.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah. But be nice. Be nice.
All right. Yeah. Let's make. Okay, I'll just erase that because it's way too bad. And sort of now that we have a strong, like a solid shape for the chest and the head, let's now for the like for arms and stuff. I like to do like ball joints.
Yeah.
In the form of just circles, and then sort of like superimpose them into like one, like, you know, in space like that. Try to imagine what foreshortening would look like, and like a perspective grid also helps into sensing depth. You know how depth evolves.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a subtle. It's not really. I couldn't really rationalize it. It's just I guess the way the squares in the perspective grid are squished sort of helps you understand how like the field of view. You know, like the sort of camera angle, I guess, or not camera angle, but yeah, field of view. I think.
Yeah.
The aperture, right? Like a fisheye camera would have like a perspective that's way compressed, you know, sideways, like where everything quickly distorts vertically, you know, and things like look crazy in depth like that, like you have a huge foreshortening. But this perspective is sort of flattened a lot, so it's closer to reality. So I can sort of imagine just a more natural foreshortening.
Yeah. I was thinking that. Well, I was trying to think how you could attach how you could attach the arm on, because it's such a small connection to the body, right? Like he has such a small shoulder, but it quickly blows out into this larger into this larger shape, and trying to fit that into the piece. I was trying to figure it out in my head, and it was just
well, that's the thing, right? Like just because something works, like let's say we're okay with the way things work with the chest and etc. Doesn't mean it has to be like set in stone and we have to just make everything work around it. There has to be a bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
So I'll just do the arm. I'll make a hand that works at a distance that works, you know, like that's why I did the little circles to understand, okay, the shoulder, elbow, wrist, okay, we're at the right distance. And now I'll just sort of focus on the hand. Maybe the little flap for the mitten.
Yeah.
And then like just fingers that sort of. And because I'm left-handed, like my natural arc for the wrist is like this. So I just like, whenever I have to draw something like this, that would be good for a right-handed person, right? Like you could just naturally sort of, but because I'm a freak of nature, I have to flip the canvas.
I remember one of like there's like a horror story that my teachers used to tell me when I was in primary school. Bearing in mind I was like I don't know, like 5 years old. They were like, yeah, so when back in like medieval times, when you were left-handed, they would smash your hand with a rock so that you were like forced to use your right hand because your left hand was broken. So they would like force you to be right-handed, and like 5-year-old me was terrified. I was
Of
I'm
course.
right-handed, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm never
Dodge the
using my left
bullet.
hand.
Yeah, that's so funny. It's probably untrue too, because
Yeah,
like most of work was labor work, like farming
yeah,
or like
exactly.
construction stuff. Like just a
Mo-
stump in your nice right hand would not
yeah,
work.
yeah. Most people probably couldn't write anyway, so how would you know? It's just like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's just crazy. I just sometimes that pops back into my head, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
why would they say that? Like, why would they tell you that?
it's crazy.
Yeah,
And yeah, to what use? Like just to the only thing I'm gathering from this story, like even though I understand it's not probably not true, is that
Mm.
yes, okay, so medieval times were crazy. Like what educational value does it have to
Yeah,
a
exactly.
terrified 5-year-old?
Yeah. Tell me something actually like, tell me something that was actually crazy, other than something that was
Yeah,
just
right.
pointless.
For sure.
But I
Anyway,
don't know,
so
man.
like that. See, like also you gotta be careful with like the distance, not the distance, but like you see the width of the finger is kind of
Yeah,
even equal to the distance with the scarf. So we have to make a choice. Like either we make it much closer or we make it like noticeably further.
yeah.
I guess further is fine. Let's see. Like it's just temporary decisions.
Hmm.
Um, and let's try to connect that with a nice. Well, I should do it on a separate layer so I can. Yeah, because of the foreshortening, I think then it's gonna have to be closer, like this, because otherwise the sleeve is gonna be like telescopic.
Yeah. He has like extendable arms.
Yeah.
No, I think,
The thing about left-handed people that you said before,
yeah.
like it reminded me like when I was a kid, like a little older than 5. I was probably like 10 or 12.
Hmm.
I was with my grandpa. Like he lived in the countryside, and one of his neighbor, like just some gruff old French dude, like came over and he saw me like just doing something on my left hand. And he freaked out. Like, ah, ah, you can't be left-handed like this. Only good for nothings are left-handed. Like you'll be a good for nothing. Like and I'm suspecting was probably traumatized by a similar story to what you were told when you were 5.
Yeah.
Only
Yeah, I
this
think,
probably happened 7 years in the past, so nobody checked that.
yeah.
So
That's the thing. I mean, like the reason I was given was like being left-handed with some kind of demonic sign or whatever, and I was just like, yeah, of course, that makes total sense. Sure.
oh man, yeah, I was really shocked, but like I was so shocked, but then I was like, wait a minute, I've never heard this. Like 10 years in, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stuff, right? And my parents were like, yeah, they sort of explained to me like, yeah, when we were kids, like teachers would tell you like, you know what, just it's not dramatic if you're left-handed, but just it's better if you can, let's see if you can write right-handed anyway. It would be cool. It would be just
Yeah.
just not more conventional. But by the time I was born, it was like completely obsolete anyway.
Yeah.
So I heard about like this thing, but I knew it was like nonsense anyway, not really up to date. So this guy, when he freaked out, like even my grandpa didn't really say anything. He was like, all right, like never really thought of that, but and
Yeah.
so I quickly was like, okay, I dismissed it pretty quickly, but it was so abrupt and so out of nowhere that I just remembered it forever. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like
It's
you saw a
just
snake, yeah.
it's
Sorry.
just so it's just so crazy. It's just like it just makes no sense. It's like, why was there a big prejudice against left-handed people? Um, but yeah, I'm seeing some of the people in chat say like Zarian says when I was a kid 10, 15 years ago in Turkey, we thought only super smart people were
Mm.
left-handed because they're very rare.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Checkered Cat says, "Wow, this is so brutal. As a kid, I always thought that left-handed kids were cool. I tried writing with my left hand, but it was all crooked. Yeah,
Uh,
man. I
yeah.
remember thinking
Mm.
that I could train myself to be ambidextrous. I was like,
Oh yeah, I
if
tried that
I
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I write with my left hand enough, I'll get so good that I can use both. No, it didn't. No, it didn't work.
Mm. Now that's smart, right?
Yeah,
Ambidextrous. That's like
yeah,
you're undoubtedly smart. That's super rare, and yeah,
mm,
for sure.
yeah.
And you know
I
what?
mean,
Okay, so oh, go ahead.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
You go, you go.
Okay, just want to say like we were talking earlier about like how to accommodate like the arm lifting up and the
Mm,
limited space in the thing. So good thing about stylized is you can get away with like a lot, and also the fact that it's like so now just to accommodate it like before the curve of the scarf was going under what would now be the curve of the arm. And
mhm.
so I just sort of compromised because it's a sweater and it's a scarf. We can sort of mush them together and in a sort of happy middle ground.
Yeah,
And by sketching something with a bit of occlusion shadow, that sort of lets you know, okay, like form is sort of meeting here, and you can leave a line if you want, but it's not super necessary. And now I feel it's not a crazy problem, you know. It might look crazier if once I'm done with the other arm, like by comparison, it's gonna look out of place, so I'm gonna have to fix it some more. But for now, it's another nice temporary decision. Like I'm sort of moving from, okay, I'm design first, then a rough pose. We started with murder. We started with a nice old cheat. We just like copied and pasted someone else's face. I just traced Alexander Leone's, nicely rendered, nicely sketched three-quarter view. So we
yeah.
started with Sin, and then in nice left-handed fashion, we just sort of moved on from there. But yeah, so the chest was one nice temporary solution. First was the scarf, then the rest of the chest. Then we sort of adjusted the scarf to play nice with the chest. Then we added the hand, then the arm, and made it all play together. You're sort of constantly adding things and revisiting the overall equilibrium, the overall balance of everything. That's how I do it anyway,
Yeah.
which is easy to do when you have a nice pre-existing design. So if let's say somebody else did that, and as an illustrator you're told, okay, like this is the design, just go for that. But from there, this is a good, this is plenty. It's okay to have this workflow. I think at least it works for me. It's not too. It requires a bit of flexibility and being able to go back and forth, but at least you don't have to be super. You don't have to be afraid that like you have to commit to decisions too much, and even if you don't have a design in mind beforehand, and if it's just a personal piece, but what I really recommend, and it's going to make you a much better designer, is to not just an illustrator, because I think nowadays, like, and it's always been the case anyway, but now that it's just super obvious because of how developed and mature uh, digital art is and commercial art is, we can see very clearly that even if you're just planning on being a purely an illustrator, which you're free to do, it's not like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to be, how to say, like a versatile.
Yeah.
You can commit to just being an illustrator, but it's good to be also good at designing your own stuff and to developing your own sense of what makes a good design. And when you do your own illustrations for your own portfolio, I really recommend setting time aside and doing a nice little symmetrical, drawing in symmetry with Photoshop and just taking time to come up with a nice body proportions, nice costume on top, and then it's a really good exercise for professional work. If you want to be a pro later, to then transfer that into an illustration. It's going to make your illustration work easier. It's also going to train you to be a better professional artist.
Yeah, something that looks nice when we do our portfolio reviews and everything. It's always nice to see when people do an illustration. It's nice to see the thought that goes into it beforehand, and that's kind of a perfect way to show it, I suppose, is show the actual character designing process and costume designing and stuff like that.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be super complex. It's not like that the design was so complex, you had to set time aside to do it on like in symmetry. Even if it's just like a very basic design, it's kind of cool to do it first and then see if you can translate it into a more like into perspective and into a more complex pose.
Yeah.
You can always enrich on top of it. You can always add, like for example, there's no I don't know what it's called, like these sort of frills at the end here in the original design. I'll just add them anyway. Like it's not. You can always make it. The design is never too cool anyway.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm gonna add these sort of frills there, I'm gonna make sure they don't start from like that line here, because that's the edge of the jumper. I'll choose a distance that's further away. Yeah, we're closing in on the first hour, so I'll move on to coloring, but
sure.
I'll spend the last 15 minutes trying to catch some more. So because we have an arm like this, now I think for a good balance, we should have an arm like that.
Yeah, get the waveform.
Yeah. It's not a must, it's just it happens to, I think, look okay here, so I'll just go for that.
Yeah. Zarian said, out of topic, Jaden, I just saw a beardless version of you on the Mooncolony website, and you look so cute. Well, thank you very much. I'm inclined to disagree, but thank you for the compliment anyway. I'll take it. That was me over a year ago now. Man, time flies.
Yeah, for sure.
The first time I met the Mooncolony guys was last year's like Christmas meetup, when we had all of those photos taken. So
okay,
I literally met everybody and then instantly had photos done, and I was like, okay.
You tagged like a rare animal, like
yeah, exactly. Yeah. He just caught me out on safari and took some photos. No, it was a nice day. I even bumped my car into the wall of a hotel car park.
Oh.
I had a couple of other Mooncolony employees in there with me. Like they just got in the car with me, and I was then parking up, and yeah, I think I was just so distracted by the fact that obviously this is the first time I'd met these people and I'm driving them somewhere. It's a little bit stressful, and I just just bumped into the wall of this car park and just sat there. It was just like, oh no, you're kidding.
Yeah.
And I'd hoped that they'd forgotten, but then our Christmas meal this year, it was brought up, and I was like, man, I really hoped that you'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it is stressful to drive other people. It's like people you just met, people like that mean a lot because they're like your colleagues, your new colleagues. Like it can be easily overwhelming for sure.
Yeah.
I remember when I just got hired in my first job in Thailand, like in a studio called Studio Hive. Like they had just built a new wing to like this house that like belonged to the boss's uncle. Like we're just like our studio was just his sort of villa or something.
Yeah.
And so he had like they had built a new like wing to it to accommodate more employees. And in Thai fashion, it had to be like the whole house had to be blessed or re-blessed.
Yeah.
By monks. So basically, it's like a chanting ceremony, like a lot of offerings, like a sort of social gathering as well. And then we have to surround the new house, like in its new state, by a few strings, like a sort of like, right. It's a sort of chord or something. It's kind of cool, It's definitely a leisurely day because we didn't have any work to do. It was just like solely just for that function.
That's cool.
And so my boss said, okay, you're gonna drive my car. We're gonna go to the temple. We're gonna pick up the monks, and we're gonna go back and that stressed me so much.
Yeah.
Like, I'd never driven in Thailand. It's like in Thailand you drive like you do in the UK.
Yeah.
And I was, of course, did all my driving in France, and I was like, "You sure?" So yeah, I can't. I I think he had already maybe drunk a little bit or something. Anyway, it was just I had to do it. So I went. We picked them up. And on the way back, like there was this gigantic gutter, but
Oh no.
like the road disappearing for like a foot, and then like the sidewalk, so just this deep gutter, and his Seat Ibiza went like like I mean right on the frame, like just boom,
Oh.
and thankfully the gutter is like narrow enough that I could just like climb back up, move on to like the sidewalk, and then like exit, back into the thing, right? But it shook me, like everybody jumped, like there was just this instant of zero gravity, like all the monks just jumped, like levitated, everybody in the car just magically levitated, and I was in a flop sweat all the way back to the car, like there's so like an ominous, like this is not meant to have, like this something, a curse is gonna happen to this new construction, like
these monks are gonna curse this house for sure.
At least me.
yeah. Man, what did your boss say?
Nothing. Actually, everybody was like super cool. I just made it much worse. Like, I'm so sorry, Erika. Everybody's like, yeah, it's okay. Just like trying to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's man, it's one of those things. Like I don't mind driving, but then like as soon as someone else gets in the car, it's like, oh man, I've really got to be on my best behavior.
Yeah. Especially if you don't drive so often, if you don't commute too much. Like it was my case. I hadn't driven in like I think 2 years at least since I had been in Thailand. So anyway.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But sorry, I've been a bit talkative and not describing too much what I was doing.
That's fine.
What I was doing here is like basically like what we have here like is like a sort of frontal view of the hand. So it was for good like variety. I wanted to show like just the same but from the opposite, and showing a design from like opposite directions, even if it's a simple silly design like just this mittens with like the reversible flap for the fingers. I think it's cool, and it makes the design overall read like even if you don't pay attention to it, maybe like 2 days from now, if I were to ask you whether the character was wearing gloves or not, you wouldn't be able to tell me. Like it's a very like subliminal detail, but having this sort of like a front and back view of the same design within the same picture sort of helps right away make the design feel like real and natural, and you don't really question it.
Yeah,
it's not so important for like a silly design like this, but in principle it's important, and it's really useful for like more complex designs. Like if you do like a fantasy character that's like has a lot of abstract or really original designs that are not really seen elsewhere, that's where like this sort of being able to show a nice sense of symmetry where proportions are respected in space, and where you have like a nice front and back view of the same design within the same picture. That's a really good advantage.
Yeah, I guess it kind of helps. It helps anybody looking at it kind of understand more about what it is they're really looking at as well.
Yeah, for sure. Come on, Arthur, you can do the legs before we move on to. Okay, so one more thing that's cool is like, okay, if this arm is like pointing forward and up like this, and this arm backward and then like that, let's have this leg, be the like a sort of like
the opposite.
Right, exactly, yeah, the opposite.
Yeah, so you almost have like an X kind of pose going on. There's probably a specific name for that, but I don't know it.
Yeah. Transversal symmetry. I don't know. I'm trying to make it sound smart, but
it's just make up words.
Right. So moon boots, right? Thankfully, they're not too complicated. Like it's a cylinder, so we're gonna just draw a cylinder with a bit of foreshortening, so it's like it expands as it progresses, as it goes forward like this. And then a sort of rectangular. No, it's an oval actually. Yeah, like moon boots are designed to be like you don't have to mind which foot you put them on. Like they're perfectly symmetrical. So they're like the foot is just shaped like an oval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never knew that they were. Like. I don't know what
ambidextrous. What it's called?
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to think of what you'd call them. Yeah, I didn't realize they were foot ambidextrous.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to have these. They were like a toy, but they were called moon shoes. And
okay,
they were these. They were. I'm surprised I didn't break anything, to be honest. They were essentially these like plastic ovals that had a bunch of elastic bands going across them.
Oh.
And you would slot your foot into it, and you would bounce. So it'd be essentially like having like a portable trampoline. Like these shoes would bounce you like really high up because they were just loads of elastic bands on them. Thinking about it now, like if you landed wrong, you would probably like twist your ankle or something, or like really like hurt yourself, I think.
Yeah.
But
so funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever break anything?
No, I'm surprised I didn't though. I used them quite a lot, but yeah, I never broke anything. I had this other thing that was called it was an air cannon, which was essentially just like a glorified plastic bag in this plastic cannon shape. You'd pull it back and let it go, and it would just shove air forwards like really hard. I broke some stuff with that though. I remember I was using it around the house and knocked one of my mum's like flower pots off of this table. Did not go down well. She was not happy. But it's funny.
Right, so yeah, I'm what I was doing before, like because we have three sort of shapes that could easily be the same size, right? Like we have this one here, this one here, and this oval here. So they're dangerously close, but I'm trying to like fine tune them into something that's hopefully good looking. I don't know if you've heard of like there's the golden ratio and there's the silver ratio. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard of the silver ratio. I've heard of the golden ratio though.
Yeah, right. So the silver ratio is like in mathematics, it's actually not so different from the golden ratio. Like you just add one thing, but I forgot what it is, like just one, like on the equation. It's not a crazy different number on paper, but it translates into a different number. Like it's 1.414, I think, the silver ratio. I mean, et cetera, et cetera. It's like an infinite sort of number. Yeah. And the golden ratio is like 1.618, et cetera, et cetera. But what it translates into is like, while you would have a stronger difference, like 1 to 1.618 for the golden ratio, you have a shorter difference for the silver ratio. It's something more like this, maybe I'm exaggerating, it's not quite right. And that silver ratio is like, it's used a lot in Asian cultures, Eastern Asian cultures. Okay. Like in a in an octagon, you have, I'm going to try to draw an octagon. Okay, well, let's give it a crack. This is a little side note, which is not really useful. Well, actually, it pertains to what we're talking about. So okay, if this is 1, right? Okay, this length here. Shit, sorry. I'm sorry, it doesn't look like it because my octagon is not looking great. This is this like it's not a diagonal, it's just this length here is 1 plus 1.414. it contains the silver ratio, like the octagon contains the silver ratio.
Oh, okay.
And because a lot of like iconography, architecture, aesthetic in the East, coming from China, it uses the octagon. Like it naturally integrates a lot of that, the silver ratio. Like the staging of pagodas, like the stairs of pagodas, or in Japan, like which took its architecture from the Tang Dynasty in China. So like a few hundred years ago, like the way, like the proportions of temples, the layouts of temples are mostly based on the silver ratio. And even like modern aesthetics in Japan, like the kawaii aesthetic that you can find in like the Pokemon or Doraemon or whatever cute stuff, Hello Kitty and stuff like that. Hello Kitty is Japanese, right?
I think so.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I always thought it was.
Okay.
Just out of
yeah. So anyway, it's like it's cuter because it's like it's based on that ratio. So things are less dramatically, like proportions are less dramatically telescoped. Things are more chubby, rounded, small. Like lengths and proportions are more relatable to each other. They're more naive. It's a little more naive.
Yeah.
What you want to avoid, of course, is like I've said before in our previous stream, it's like this sort of just perfectly even sort of consecutive shapes. That's really bad. But if you can do something that's like, if you want to do something cute, just change it a little bit, like into the silver ratio. And if you want to do something more elegant and even more like more, I don't know, dramatic, I guess, you can even like make that distance, that contrast between proportions even more extreme. There's actually an infinite number of metallic ratios. Like we only know like the golden ratio, then the silver ratio was named that just because it's just a similar, it's like the next thing, so we call it the silver one. But then you can call it like there's the copper ratio, and then they just tacked on other names of metals, but actually it's just like a logarithmic rhythm. So yeah, logarithmic proportions are what makes a design purposeful, I think, and it's a good thing to use, in your art in general. Is like, let me write 30 arrows. So for example, a logarithmic spiral is something that like at each revolution or quarter revolution or whatever, like gains more, more amplitude, right?
Yeah.
So that's the golden spiral. It doesn't have to be a golden spiral. It just has to be a logarithmic spiral. It can expand in different ways, like with different rhythms, but it's better looking, it's more natural looking and cooler looking, and more dynamic and dramatic looking if it's a logarithmic spiral. I think it's called Archimedean spirals, are like those that just move by an order of one at each revolution, like regularly. And those are great for like if you want to show something that's like incremental, like something like an old culture, like something that's because we see a lot of these this sort of small, like this Archimedean stuff in like old pottery, like corded pottery, corded ware, I think it's called, like stuff that just people would do like not naively, but without a sense of cool, awesome design, like things that just like you can just like keep adding, like I don't know, a like just clay, you can just make a sort of like, like this, like a snail, like we would do when we were kids, just take clay and just make something like this. There's something naive and primordial about it. That can be cool to convey a sort of ancestral culture. But if you want to do something cool and impressive, try to project proportions in a logarithmic way. Anyway, it's a long way to say, like, I just need to do something about those boots and make sure they're not too naive looking.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of closer to the silver ratio, even though I cannot really quite measure it. I would have to have a sort of gauge there. But like this is, you know what I mean. Like proportions are pretty close, but not too close. It's
different enough to tell. But yeah.
Exactly. I would try to avoid it if it were like for like a high fantasy, like a more complicated design that I wanted to be more sophisticated looking.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Garlic Slayer, for the hydrate redemption. I will have a drink. Thank you very much.
Ooh.
It's not until we get people redeem the hydrate that I realize it's been like an hour since I last had a drink, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should have something. Man.
All right, and for good measure, we're gonna just do the back foot, but then I'll show you the colors.
Sure.
The color version. And same thing, you know, I'll just like, because that one is pointing forward, like I'll make the other one pointing backwards, showing the back design. Of course, it's naturally you have to do this if the character is running.
Ancient Rendered Sanrio is Japanese. Yeah, so Hello Kitty is Japanese. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Thanks for the confirmation.
Yeah. I knew it was big in Japan, but I didn't really. It kind of made me doubt myself. I was like, I get the feeling it is, but who knows?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think I was confusing it a little bit with Miffy, which is like I think Dutch.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Miffy is like this rabbit character that looks very close to Hello Kitty.
Yeah, it has a little X for its mouth, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Miffy. For some reason I always think that do you know Tintin? Like there was the old books, yeah. For some reason I always think that Tintin is French, but it's not. It's Belgian, I think.
Yep, it is. For sure. Yep. Yeah, that's the highlight of French comic books, I think, is where we shown the brightest is with Tintin. Is not with Tintin, sorry, with what Tintin inspired us at the time. But that style is for sure the coolest thing. Since then, I mean, French comic books are awesome, but there's a sort of purity about Tintin, at least graphically, because I think ethically it's been criticized a lot for being too much of its time and too much, you know, apologetic of colonialism and stuff. So of course, there's, you know, grain of salt there, but in terms of style, like this clear line, flat colors, that inspired French comic books like a lot, to the point that a joint style was developed for it, and that style was called Franco-Belgian, because it's like a clear line. Yeah, Franco-Belgian comic style. It's like the format also is like this sort of, I think, almost or maybe bigger than A4, a little bigger than A4, and just this sort of like way of even like penciling, the way also of like lettering the comic book, just all that is I think it had its hour of glory from the 60s to the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
It's remained since then, but I don't feel like I used to collect comic books a lot, like Franco-Belgian comic books a lot, because it was what was mostly available. Like DC, Marvel, all that stuff was somehow not really in the conversation when I was a kid. And yeah, like comic books have evolved. They're a little cooler looking now, but there's something so clear and so like, because comic book drawings, I feel it's like, this is a weird tangent, I don't know, but it's like, to me, it's not so much about the drawing, it's really about the story and how you make the story move along. And sometimes I feel like comic drawing wants to be too cool and at the expense of the story. It can be at the expense of the story. It's like the more complicated the drawing, the better really it has to be, and the better an artist you have to be, because you're not trying to compete with the story, you're trying to convey the story. It's just sort of like childish, like really like reassuring simplicity with Tintin and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff with like I remember back when I was in high school, I got given a load of like Batman comics, and I think you know the art in those Batman comics is incredible, but at the same time I don't remember any of the stories from them, and like I remember even at the time getting to the end of the comic and going, I don't really know what
Yeah.
I don't really know what I've just read because like you spend so long you spend so long looking at the pictures, and I think you're kind of right in that it competes, like it's actively competing with the story, whereas it kind of shouldn't be really. It should be working like in tandem.
Yeah. You know, I think it's a good point. Like I think American comic books have inspired kids to become comic book artists.
Yeah.
Well, I think Franco-Belgian comic books have inspired kids to become like comic book writers or storytellers. I think maybe I'm wrong, but because for sure, like a lot of artists I know who drew who read American comics when they were kids, they wanted to become comic book artists. Like they didn't really, the story was there. Like it's like, yeah, somebody's gonna write a new arc for Spider-Man. It doesn't have to be me. It's not the problem. I want to be drawing Spider-Man though. I want to draw Spider-Man like flying across the town and stuff like that. Anyway, so I think we're drawing close to, like, I could keep refining the character, but I think I've explained enough of the sort of process, how it goes on. I want to show you now what I've done. Sorry. Okay. This, that. Okay, so that's my, that's what it looked like after a few hours of like sketching, refining, repositioning, checking proportions. So let's check again, trying to make sure things are not too even from one thing to the next. It's okay if one thing is the same size as like something else elsewhere. Also, yeah.
I was going to say, so yeah, it's just when they're in that same kind of general vicinity, you don't want them to be the same size. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Also trying to think ahead, like when we color and render, because when you do line art and you're concerned with proportion and posing everything and volume and all that stuff, you might be also not thinking so much about texture contrast and material contrast. But at this stage, it's also nice to say, okay, what's going to be, what materials are things going to be? So making sure there's a nice like alternation of that. Like it's not, for example, we have two woolly things next to each other, right? We have the scarf and the Christmas jumper. Mm-hmm. The mittens also are, obviously it's going to be fluffy and stuff. Yeah. So we're gonna have to make sure that there's still some texture difference, some pattern difference, something. They have to still feel a little different. Maybe it's okay if the scarf and the mittens are similar because they're not directly next to each other.
Yeah.
What you want to avoid is like two things being next to each other and exactly the same thing. So they could even be the same color, like two red things and roughly the same, like maybe like a felt or like this sort of woolly texture, but the jumper then is gonna have to be really a different thing. So I added a little ribbing at the at the bottom of the jumper and near the extremities, just to add some sort of material and detail difference, detail contrast. I imagine the boots would be like this sort of swooshy, this sort of nylon thing, this sort of cheap moon boots nylon. While the laces would be like just normal canvas laces or like fabric laces, I guess. Maybe some sort of vinyl or plastic for the heel and toe pieces. Just some regular like the hands on the character that Leonie drew. I don't know what material they are. I assume just some neutral, fabric or vinyl or lead. Probably not leather, but anyway, so that's okay. I'm just not worried about it. Now, the only difference I did with the original design, I mean the original, the one I had sort of worked out, is that trying it on like in 3/4 and volume, etc. Like the having the whole thing around like this was a little too much, like this sort of headband. So I just I think it's a little funnier also, and it connects better to the helmet thing. if it's like two suckers, you know?
Yeah, suction cups. Yeah.
Sucking cups. Yeah. So that's what I went for.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. It's funny.
Yeah. All right. So let me show you then. Oh, is there any question?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, I noticed Emra popped in earlier on when you were talking about comic books and stuff. He said Arthur's dropping knowledge like mad, mind blown. Yeah.
I ranted a bit. I don't know if.
Nah, you're fine. You're fine. We love a good tangent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want to show you also like how I ink things. So what I would do is because I could have done like something more like you know, gone from there at flat colors and then the lighting and render stuff. But I was really short on time, so I didn't have time to do something like really rendered out in volume, like a Hearthstone card, right? So instead, I thought I could do just like a simple lighting scheme, but to make it look finished, I'm gonna do like a line art, you know. So it's gonna look neat, and then with just flat colors and simple lighting, it's gonna look like sort of like a simple comic book image or something like that, you know.
Nice.
So once again, sorry to disappoint, but it's not a if it disappoints, it's not a fancy brush. It's the sharp, like it's this sort of round brush, you know. Here I've set myself in 30 because my canvas is in like it's like 2,500 by 3,000, so it's about this size. Like I wanted to read like at full screen to read like neatly, you know, not too small, not too thin. Just a nice thick line art, especially on the outside. Like the whole silhouette should read clearly, so that the thicker line should be on the outside. And then just taking my time.
Sure. Yep. Radek, I was just going to read this out. Radek said, "This has been extremely helpful so far. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and work process."
Thank you. My pleasure.
It's always nice. Yeah, for me, it's always nice to see like how like every artist has a different approach to problems. Like it's such a problem solving job to have. I think, especially well, I'm guessing it's doubly so for an art director position, but
there's a bit of that, yeah.
From the outside, you don't realize quite how much problem solving goes into it.
Yeah, and you probably don't realize how much problem solving there is into it, even for yourself, like what you do, you know, until you start describing it to people.
Yeah.
Because when you're just computing constantly a bunch of stuff and having to describe it to people and explain also your process, that really highlights how much goes on, like in terms of decision making and comparison and all that. You know, it's a lot of judgment that's constantly happening.
Yeah.
But it's not just like that's everybody who draws. You know, you're constantly. It's like a supercomputer going off all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the line art would be something like this. You know, just I like making it super tight. So I'll erase some parts with like a marker or with just the same sharp brush, like the round brush. But yeah, there's nothing much to it. This is what it looks like when it's finished.
Nice.
Not finished. This is just the flat colors.
Flat colors, yeah.
So now let me show you how I would light this thing, right? It would be the same process for like a Hearthstone card or like whatever, like any like illustration. It's really the same thing. It's just like in this case, I'm gonna keep it super simple. The same steps, but more simple, like without rendering, because I won't have the time. Like to render a full card takes like I don't know, between 24 and 48 hours.
Yeah.
Spare you the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, we don't have quite that much time.
All right. So open mission point. I can close my design at this stage.
Thank you, Tarnex, as well, for the posture check. I have just sat up straight. Thank you very much. Another thing I need to work on is sitting up properly.
Me too.
I also have a really bad
I'll
habit
take
of
that check as well.
sat cross-legged. I'll sit on my chair
Oh
and
yeah.
cross my legs, and it's like I don't think it's good for my knees.
Yeah. It's not hurtful if you stretch out every once in a while if you get up, but yeah, this whatever you do the same thing the whole time, like for hours at a time, it's not good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let me show you what I do for the lighting. I'll just add this sort of opaque black layer just to highlight what I'm doing. But basically, like what I like to do for lighting is indicate really neatly like the direction at which it's falling onto the character. So these lines are like rays of light. They're like indicating the light direction. So for now it's like perfectly vertical, right?
Yeah.
Now to show that it's like I want to show like a frontal, slightly maybe side view, maybe not even just like a frontal view, but like a frontal, angle, like a kind of I don't know, 70 degrees angles, not quite vertical, not in between horizontal and vertical. It's just something as if a light somewhere like above and in front of the character was lighting the character.
Yeah.
And so I'll maybe add like a little arrow to show the direction of. So I'll just distort it like this.
Interesting.
And like this. Sorry, wrong thing. Like it might be a little messy, but usually I leave the perspective grid also because it helps me visualize again the change in elevation. But let's do without just for clarity. So what would I do? Okay, I'll make a new layer. So those are my flat colors. This is my background. Flat colors, my line art. I'll clip a new layer on my flat colors, and I'm gonna set it to hard light. I'll fill it with this sort of bluish gray, like this. Maybe a little darker. That's going to be like as if the character was completely in the shadow.
Yeah.
And it's bluish to show that it's like sort of capture, like getting the color of the sky a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if the environment was warmer, I would make it like a brownish gray, just to That's just why, just to explain why. And then I'll just follow the rays of light. Like I'll just erase the shadow where I don't want it.
Wow, it's such a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I have this, my color picked there is the same color as the shadow. So I'm just painting on the shadow layer, and I'm adding and removing, and having the perspective grid and sort of trying to visualize the change in angle, not only in space but also of the surface that I'm painting. For example, this scarf is like this side of the scarf is pointing slightly down, so it's getting less light.
Yeah.
But that edge over here is getting more of it. Now this side here is way turned away from the light, like this side of the scarf, so it's getting most of the shadow. But in the front here, it could lighten up a bit. Maybe even the bottom part could get some of that light.
Nice. Oh, hello, Ira, and hello, Tiago. Nice to see you. Welcome to the stream.
Hey guys. So that's my basic method. I've used it for years. So I'm happy with it. It's not like a cure, like it's not perfect. Like it's how to say. It still needs like once you do all this thing, you still need to like do a lot of brush work to work up texture and all that stuff and like fine tune everything. So it still takes a lot of like just like grind after that. But this is like a good like if you aim at doing a lot of illustrations like for the same game like Hearthstone for example, like it's good to have something stable that you can replicate, so this way you can also envisage more clearly, okay, I can take 4 illustrations this month, or you know what I mean, like it's and you're not worried about which subject is going to be, because this is not relevant to the subject or the topic. It's not a matter of style. It's just a very physical, like physically oriented way of lighting things. It's just dealing with volumes, whatever they are,
Yeah.
What I like about this way is that it helps me visualize what could cast a shadow, So here, like if we follow this line, so this ray of light is going to hit here, then this is going to be in the shadow. And so there's going to be like a cast shadow, and then the light is going to resume, again here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've really sketched it well, but anyway, there's this gap here in the shadow, and then where the light stops here, then it's like it casts a shadow there, and then light begins again. So it's just something that you're not, when you don't have a specific lighting scheme in mind, when you're not so sure how things are, like when things are all up in in the air all the time, where you're sort of juggling with everything, it's kind of hard to visualize those solutions. But when you have like those lines, those guidelines like this, it really helps me right away, without spending too much brain work, like brain cells, like, oh, there's a nice cast shadow here, like just there at the bottom of the scarf, so I'll just use it. I think I did something wrong here with my colors.
Yeah, it's just such a different way of doing lighting than I've seen any of our like other artists use as well. So it's super interesting. I think lighting can sometimes be light and shadow can be quite a confusing a confusing thing to paint when even when especially when you've got more complicated shapes, like maybe I wouldn't say these are necessarily complicated, but you know what I mean. But just having those guidelines in there, I'm sure can help a lot, and it's something that I don't see many people do.
Yeah, it's and that's the cool thing about drawing is it's still a bit of the, like, it's a personal thing, right? Like the way you develop your own methods and stuff, you just end up like finding things that are maybe they're not like the truth, they're just one way of getting to a good result. They're not like the canon, they're not like the new doctrine of anything. It's just like, here's what I found, it works for me, maybe it's going to work for you, or maybe you can take it but like make it your own, like integrate it in your own workflow.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's like you see so many different workflows, and so many people are giving out tips. It's kind of you can't use all of them, and you shouldn't use all of them. It's more up to you to sort of pick and choose which ones you want to take and see how you can apply them to your own workflow, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And like at least the good thing when we're still in a healthy like industry is that there's so much stuff to do. Like the worst is when you're like that's a good point. I mean, of a good community, you know, it's like you when you're stuck, there's like when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, like you don't have any like a way out of your slump or wherever you are, that's the worst. But when you have artists like sharing, hey, here's what works for me,
Yeah.
like giving you something to try, just something to try, you know, it's not, maybe it doesn't work for you, maybe it's just a weird like a professional deformation, like something I just sort of acquired over time, but that's maybe it's too niche, you know, maybe it just works mostly with card art, I don't know, because it could be a bit complicated if you do this like rigorously exactly like this for like a giant composition. Maybe it's going to take too long, I don't know. But at least it's good to have something to try when you're in a slump. And hopefully those live streams which you organize, they it's like a nice sort of outlook on what's possible. Something that could be nice to try.
Oh yeah, and Ignacio said, Arthur's right, join the Mooncolony server. It helps a lot of people. It helps a lot to learn, and it helps a lot of other people learn too. Exactly. There's always a bunch of us in the voice chat, and so like there's been a lot of times when someone's gone, I'm really struggling with drawing this hand. Can anyone help me out? And it's like, yeah, sure. People are always happy to help. It's such a, I think you said it right. It's such a healthy, it's a healthy industry to be in, and a healthy atmosphere as well. I'll drop a link in the chat for the server just in case anybody isn't part of it already. It's always the hands, hands or feet. It's always.
Oh my god, the feet are like, that's no, like that's the worst. That's like when you think you're done. You know, when you're good at hands, you think you're done. No, there's. Look at the feet.
The amount of times I've heard someone say, "Oh man, I've got to do the feet." That you tell you, no, you know what? I'm just going to crop this so that there's feet on it. That's. Checkered Cat says, this is such a magical part, sculpting the form. Form with light, it's like meditation. I'm taking notes for new methods to try.
You see, like even something like, okay, what I was doing just before, like if you follow this line here, like so this line, right? It sort of helps me guess, like, okay, there's the corner of the scarf, and I want to make a nice cast shadow on the arm. So I understand, like, basically this whole form here is going to be moved down here, right? And because the arm is sort of like rotating, like, I mean, the form is like a cylinder, it's gonna stretch down like that, right? And so that gives me a nice opportunity to cast a shadow, which I wouldn't necessarily see if I didn't have any plan, you know, if I didn't have any guide already sort of spelling it out for me. And because
it almost feels like if you could cheat, it feels like cheating. No, it's nice.
But this is when you're done, like, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, this is like seeing the lighting being put on and it shaping the form. It's one of my favorite parts to watch, because it really feels like it's all coming together and you're already getting the shapes. But
and what I like to do is like, for example, if I just want to do something on the pom-pom there, right? I'll just go to the flat colors and I'll just select the red here, and then I'll go back to my shadow and I'll just, you know, erase it. And I know I'm not like spilling over in anywhere. Like, you don't have to do it for everything. Like, for example, I didn't do it on the scarf because, like, okay, I can just erase a little bit what I did too much. Like elsewhere, I can just sort of clean it up. But sometimes you just want to pinpoint one detail, and it's good to keep the flat colors on their own layer. Even if, like, let's say you have already some lighting done and you flatten it, so you have like already a complex image there. It's good to make either you make a new layer with like color groups on it. It takes a while, you know, but you sort of lasso shapes and you make them all different colors. I've seen this in like splash art, like tutorials, you know, like on YouTube, like things for League of Legends and stuff like that, where the image is already very complex, but the artist keeps like this layer with like the highlighted shape just for one thing, and this way you can select it, and this way, you know, you're only selecting that specific thing
Yeah.
on the complex drawing.
Yeah. When we had Alex Heath on the
Mhm.
stream a few weeks ago, I think that was what he called the clown pass, because
Okay.
when you're selecting all of the shapes and you're giving them all different colors, it ends up looking like some kind of weird clown. So he calls
Yeah, that's a
he,
good name
he called it the clown pass, which I thought was good.
for sure. Okay.
Chicken
Even
Man
this
said,
little horn here.
"Oh,
Yep.
sorry." Chicken Man just said, "I'm
No,
loving
go
this
ahead.
method. It reminds them of descriptive geometry."
I don't know what it is. Descriptive geometry.
No, me neither.
Oh, I remember you. Ira
Yeah.
Feroy. I remember you. Yeah, of course. You're. Yeah. That's so nice to see you. It's been a long time. Ah, that's really cool.
Yeah, see, small world. We said it earlier. It just
Yeah,
keeps coming up.
for sure. Yeah, I just want to say like this line going through like the horn. It just right away tells me, oh yeah, there's a nice cast shadow just at the base we can put there like this.
Yeah, that's nice.
Let's select now the face.
Amazing impact of lighting. Circle. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Same thing, the pom-pom can sort of like cast a shadow onto the face. As long as you're rigorous, and like if you're using like a scheme like this, just a top-down lighting that's slightly from the front, you can't really like, you can sort of let go and just follow the lines wherever they take you, you know, like follow the sort of logic of it and just sort of discover what happens. And then you can always cheat a little bit, you know, if the pom-pom is really too big, which I think it is, maybe a little bit, it would cast too much of a shadow on the face. Well, you know, we'll just cheat a little bit. We'll just like reduce it. If it's just a little bit, and if the rest is, if overall the picture is logical, I guess, or makes sense and is physically coherent, nobody's the wiser.
Yeah. Raijin's Throne has asked, are you erasing a multiply layer for your light source?
Oh, it could be a multiply, because actually multiply is the same as hard light, just different intensity. So I just chose a hard light layer, but you could choose do that in any, basically any blending mode that's like strong enough to occult a lot of the, you know, to really, you know, have a strong impact on the picture, you know, like this, but also have a little bit of translucency so that you still see the local colors from underneath. Like in normal, that would make no sense, you know, because there's zero translucency. It's just like a but also like in soft light, it would make no sense. It would be way too soft, you know.
Yeah, it would be like
So yeah,
very, very harsh light.
yeah, exactly. So hard light works, but if you're used to multiply, it's the same really. It has the same blending properties, just at various intensities. So like you can use like one color, how to say, like I tried this before, like as an experiment, like using one color for like on multiply, so it's going to be like lighter, and then duplicating the layer, setting it to hard light, and like on a just the same picture, but just like open on a different canvas, just to compare, and the same color just darkened a lot in hard light. It was exactly the same blending, exactly the same properties, and I tried it with different colors, and it seems to me that they are actually the same thing, just a different like yeah, with a different intensity.
And it's interesting. It's those layer modes. They're like they just don't, their names don't help you at all with what they actually do.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at university, the only layer mode I ever needed was multiply, and I was like, that solved all my problems. Multiply was like the god mode.
Yeah. What am I doing? I could just do this, because I'm trying to select only the jaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the flat colors, but I'll use the magic one, and I'll take sample all layers, and this way, instead of the whole color flat for for this, I'll be able to select only. Oh, I have to take contiguous as well. Yeah, this way I only have the jaw selected. Because I want to do a cast shadow on the jaw as well.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the time, I think we're actually good, right? Like, I'll show you like a few more effects in the last 20 minutes, but that was a nicely managed time.
Yeah, you did well with your plans. Nice job.
My left-handed schemes, my sinister schemes.
Yeah, your sinister left-handed plot has worked out.
I think it's in Italian, right? Like siniestra is like the name for the left hand.
Oh,
it also means sinister. For that very reason you mentioned before, is like this sort of Christian symbolism.
Man, now we know who to blame for my traumatizing story as a child.
Yeah, that's what I love. That's one thing I love about art, like, because you're gonna, like, just by curiosity and being exposed to different things, like, you're gonna learn so much about history, mythology, symbolism, mathematics. Like, I was an absolute like null in math. Like, I was really bad in math, but like digging into art really made me appreciate more the utilitarian value of numbers and formulas and ratios and stuff like that. The abstraction of it, like learning it for the sake of it, for the sake of having a good grade in school, was like torture for me. I just couldn't do it. I gave up pretty much mathematics. But I found a new appreciation for it. That's one good, like, that's something magical about art, is can sort of reconcile you with a bunch of stuff and also expose you to a whole new, like, just the history of the world, like so much stuff. Mythology is so rich and such a, like, it's a bottomless well of inspiration. That alone.
There's a YouTube channel that I watch, of, I can't, the name escapes me right now, but I have time to drink some water. Oh, thank you so much. I will do that. Thank you. But it is it's an art restoration YouTube channel.
Oh,
it's
wow.
This guy over in the US, and his videos are really, like, they're really well shot, and the way he talks about the pieces is really beautiful. Like, he really respects them, as as an art conservationist you really should. But sometimes he'll delve into a piece and tell you about the artist who painted it, and like why it was painted, who it was painted for, and what happened to the artist after it finished painting it. If he can get that information, then he'll tell you about it, and it is really interesting. And it's funny because sometimes it will be like, this much loved family heirloom was hated, like the original artist hated it and basically just got rid of it for nothing. He was like, I don't want it around me anymore. But it's just little stories like that, which they're not big name, well, some of them are, but a lot of them aren't big named classical artists. They're not like your
Rembrandt, your Van Gogh, your all that stuff.
And it was just like, it's just really nice. It gives you like a little window into this totally random part of history. Connie Draws said, I think you're talking about Baumgartner restoration. That is exactly who I'm talking about. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Super nice guy. Really relaxing videos. I used to watch them when I was at university. After I'd like stressed out about a bunch of assignments, I would just put them on and relax. But yeah,
Oh. All right,
it's
so I'll use the last few minutes to. Sorry, you had
no,
something else.
no.
Okay. Yeah, I think I should show you what I did, and okay, so that's that's pretty much like the final version of it, and I'll just walk you through a few more things, right?
Sure.
Because there's a pile of layers. Let's like this, and let's go back. So I'll just hide a bunch of stuff. Because I'm gonna have to go in like about 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
I still have plenty of time to show the last few tricks. So I'll just try to simulate us being just done with this pretty much. Yeah, there's a bit of gas shadow here to remove particles. Okay, that's pretty much, where we are right now. So what I did after that was same thing, like same layer, hard light, it can be multiply, same color, and I just added a bit of core shadow, or occlusion shadow, I guess it's the true name. I forgot what I heard core shadow, but I just like, that's how I remember it, but you know what I mean, right? There's this sort of shadow that just like where light is just not really penetrating, like it's just in the nooks and crannies of the forms. So just, yeah, that's a good thing to accentuate like big shapes, like by adding core shadows underneath them, like the scarf, it gives her that extra volume.
It's ambient occlusion, isn't it? I think.
Yes, ambient occlusion. That's it. Thank you.
No, you're all right.
I can add a bit more here. Yeah, that's about it. Then a couple of highlights, like some highlights. So basically just enhancing the lit areas because they were a bit too dull. The local colors were, it didn't seem dull from that, from the flat colors alone. But after I added this shadows and core shadows, it sort of, was a bit too dark and desaturated. So accentuating the lit parts with some highlights is good. What did I do? Oh yeah, I added a specular highlights for the helmet.
Nice.
And here's an interesting one. It's also specular, like a reflection. It's a reflection on the helmet, and that's basically like using the perspective, like approximately, and let's use this color, the color of the ground. So based on the here, based on the angle of my character, on the fact that it's like spherical like this, or cylindrical, sorry, like this, at least this part, I can understand that, and given the elevation of the ground, referring to the perspective grid, I can sort of guess that the ground there will be a ground reflection that's like sort of circular, like oval, like this.
Yeah.
So like at least that's how I judge it. I didn't really, I guess it's sometimes you think you understand things, and it's, if you were to simulate them in 3D, it will actually behave differently. But as my little French brain can compute right now, that's about right. Yeah, something like this. So
it kind of looks like he's got a big white mustache.
yeah, it looks really ugly right now.
There's nothing ugly about a mustache, Arthur. Come on.
You know what? From your lips to God's ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll erase it where it's like, because it's a reflection, so
Yeah.
it could be like the reflection could be occulted by the scarf a little bit there, like like it's all very logical, but then also we have to cheat a little bit when it looks ugly, or when it's sort of like when it creates a tangent. You just sort of stretch things, if somehow like it's sort of like for example, if the reflection would happen just near the eye there, near the blue of the eye, I just sort of move it, regardless of whether it's actually perfectly correct or not. There's always a bit of leeway, a bit of artistic freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, but of course that's not good. So what we're gonna do is make a layer mask here. Take a soft brush and we'll erase it pretty much everywhere. Keeping the stronger, like the closer to the ground, the more intense the reflection is.
Sure.
So I'll just keep it stronger here.
That'd be why you didn't just like lower the entire opacity of the layer, right? Because you want it stronger in certain areas than others.
Right.
Yeah.
And a layer mask is good like that because that coupled with a big soft round brush, you can really sort of test things around, add a little bit more, erase it. Like you can really fine tune the presence, the opacity of that layer.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the thinking behind that layer here. It's not much, but it adds up something, It's like that in the highlight right away, like here. That's my thing. What else do we have? The eye glow. So for the eye glow, I just did a linear dodge layer set to black. So of course it's because linear dodge reacts to anything lighter than black. If you fill it in black, it's invisible. But what it is, it's a good base for like if you just add like a normal layer on top of it, and you pick whatever blue, right? That's set to like normal layer, like blending mode, right?
Sure.
If it creates this nice sort of like glow that reacts nicely to like whatever is underneath,
Yeah.
There's some nice color variation, sorry. So that's something I use like all the time for glows. Just a black linear dodge layer. Add a bit of lens flare.
Yeah.
So apparently we're in a sci-fi movie suddenly. So that's another like cheap trick that makes a picture look so sort of immersive and realistic with minimal effort. What else did we have?
Had the
some
shadow
particles
and also the particles.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Shadow for sure. So the shadow is interesting because I followed both the perspective and the light direction. So basically what here. So if I were like, yeah, so, okay. So basically you're trying to follow like, for example, the hand, where it's going to end. It's going to end like above the boot. So there's going to be some more shadow on the boot,
Yeah.
And then maybe a bit of like that's the fingers and stuff, they're like ending here, and you sort of follow the lines to see sort of where they end up. Same here, the arm, it sort of ends up here. I should probably make the antlers cast a shadow on the scarf. I guess I can do it now.
Yeah, there's a few more minutes left.
Yeah. And of course I have to erase the highlights here. Anyway, so that's the thinking behind the cast shadow on the ground. And because the ground is irregular, I pictured it being in the snow and stuff, you can be a little creative, with the outline of the shadow. It doesn't have to be super rigorous, it's not like, but the grouping of it, the basic like projection of the shadow onto the ground based on where the arms are and stuff like that, that has to be somehow well aligned. But the outline of it, actually, it's okay. You can sort of you can be a bit irregular with that. Then there's more occlusion shadow, right? No,
Yep.
what? How did you call it?
Ambient occlusion.
Ambient occlusion. Okay, I really have to, yeah, have to de-learn, like unlearn core shadow because it's definitely
Yeah.
not the orthodox. Because for me it doesn't matter, but if we're actually talking to students, people who want to have like like a proper vocabulary, yeah, ambient occlusion to be thing. I did a bit of patterning like to the Christmas sweater. I think it's it's nice. It's like it's very quickly done with just a marker and like red and just going this. Just really very, very simply, like,
Yeah.
it's really relaxing. That was one of
Yeah,
my favorite part.
I was about to say this is like that's the kind of task that you do when it's like a Friday afternoon and you don't you don't want to do anything. It's just like, well, I know, I'll make some nice little patterns.
Exactly. Yeah. So what else? Then very quickly, just a bit of vignetting for the just to group to concentrate the attention of the viewer towards like the more brightly colored and most contrasted parts of the picture, which is the center. Another very cheap trick, Then what else? I did some particles. They're hard to see. It's just to add a tiny bit of noise, right here.
Yeah, you can kind of see them, I think, just about.
Kind of see, yeah. There's more here. Are they visible at all? That's strange. Where are they? I wonder even why they're invisible. They're essentially invisible. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why is that?
They're there.
Okay. Here, I see a couple. Yeah. Okay, now they're more visible. It was just a bit of noise, just to add something, but yeah, and that's it really, right? That's all the layers we have. Yep. There's more particles here, and that's let's not forget the logo somewhere. Yep.
Yeah, nice.
And flip it back to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Just quickly, Ira said, is that the usual oval brush on the pattern? I'm assuming that's the pattern for the sweater.
Oh, the sweater. Yeah, the sort of like marker brush I have. It's a very flattened oval. I use it as a marker. For flat colors, it's really nice. I like it. Like it can create some nice little arcs. I really like it for coloring, but more than the sharp, like the round brush, because the round brush, as your pressure like will vary, just because we're not always super even with our pressure, it will sort of change the outline of it, and I really don't like it. So I'll use like something more firm like this.
Yeah,
this marker, nice. And it doubles as a Christmas sweater pattern maker, of course.
Oh, the more important of the two, obviously.
Yep.
All
right.
amazing. Well, thank you so much. It was. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot, and I was sort of concentrating on multiple things at once. But thank you so much, Arthur, for coming along and showing us all the tips and tricks, and for giving Nix a well-earned makeover. I think he looks great, so Christmassy. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody in the chat as well. Everyone who's watched any of our streams this year, it's much appreciated. All of the follows and subscriptions and everything. The amount of growth we've had in the last 11 months or however long we've been doing this for has been incredible, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. Happy holidays. This was our last stream for the year. So yeah, happy holidays, everybody, and we will see you back here. Oh, someone got their last hydrating of the year. Thank you so much. We'll see you back here January the 4th for our first stream of 2024. But thank you so much, everybody. I'll have all of these hydrates after the stream. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you.
And I'll
Thanks,
see you
everybody.
soon.
Have
Bye-bye.
Happy Christmas.